Hello, everyone, and welcome in. I'm Terry Miller, the Disc Golf Guy, and tonight we're going to get to know one of our candidates for the PDGA Global Board of Directors. We're going to have the same questions for all candidates, starting out with Dustin here to give you the first ones. Dustin Schrieber is joining us, PDGA number 210792. We're going to get right into it. Dustin, go ahead and introduce yourself.
You already said it. I'm Dustin Schrieber. I'm PDGA number 210792. That's a fun number because it's a 6-digit 200 series number, which means I'm relatively new to disc golf in disc golf terms. I've been playing maybe since kind of the late part of the COVID boom. A couple of friends of mine got me into it, like so many disc golf stories go. I've been playing for a couple of years and recently decided that over the last year that I should really be more involved, that volunteering at spot up events wasn't enough. So I jumped on the board for the St. Louis Disc Golf Club and really enjoyed my experience. I've started to be part of that board and the new ideas I could bring to that board and kind of the younger vision, maybe the newer generation vision in places that I've been able to bring there, and thought, maybe the PDGA Global Board could use some of that same vision. And so I'm here to see if I can help the community out even further.
Well, you're leading right into our very first question, which is, why are you running for the global board, and what will your priorities be, and some of the issues that you hope to champion if you have a seat on the board?
So I think, I started off there with wanting to be a newer generation voice for the board, and that's a huge part of why I want to run, and the people that I really want to be able to represent. But I think beyond that question is kind of multifaceted. There's a lot of initiatives that the board has, that PDGA has as a whole, that are really good and that I'm very much behind: growth, diversity, inclusion. How do we get all of those go? And the board already has those going in a great direction. So I want to be part of that. I want to join in and help to further that. But then I also want to start thinking about other things, like beyond just growing the game. How do we sustain the game in places that we have? How do we take some of those COVID disc golfers who maybe have gotten a little bit lost in the middle? Maybe they're between divisions. Maybe they bump pro too early and can't quite float. How do we keep them engaged, and how do we develop them into lifelong members and make sure that they know how they can be part of the game beyond just the competition side, how they can volunteer, how they can be involved, and how they can still compete while doing all of that.
Okay, so I'm hearing growth as always, but then sustainability seems to be a core component that you're looking for as well with these players. Next question is, if you could tell us about your educational and work background, and then what skills and experiences do you have that would make you the right choice?
Yeah, so I've got a bachelor's in mechanical engineering from the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign and a MBA, master's in business administration, from the Southern Illinois University, Edwardsville. What that's led me to in my career is several positions throughout the engineering world, throughout some off-roading parts of the engine world, working on engines, and then the automotive industry, working on suspensions, and most recently switching over to the industrial section as a leader in a thermal company. And what that helps me to bring to the table is a couple of different skill sets. One, it brings that engineering mindset that gives me the data-driven decisions. How do we get data? How do we use that data to make decisions? I've also, over the course of my career, been fortunate to be able to lead several teams of varying sizes, including some rather large teams across global centers in multiple disciplines. And so it gives me that global piece of the board experience. And what it all kind of leads to is it helps me to know how to get things done. So I'm able to blend kind of that youthfulness and that newer generation with a kind of fortunate career path that has taught me a lot on how do we get things done? How do we close out tasks? How do we take initiatives that are awesome, but that take a lot of effort, and take them from maybe lost in the middle ground a bit to a firm due date and a completion so that we can start seeing the benefit from them?
Well, without knowing, again, none of our candidates know any of these questions ahead of time, so I want to share that with everyone out there. You kind of lead right into the next question, though, which is, what type of benefits do you think the current PDGA members should receive? What type of benefits do you think they should be getting?
Well, I think, there's an awesome page out there on the PDGA, if you Google the benefits, PDGA benefits, that just summarizes exactly what you get. And I think, if we were to summarize the best ones of those, the competition, the performance tracking is what draws so many people in. But there's so much beyond that, and so much more than beyond that coming. I think when you look at TD Aid, there's the new program launched, I think, just last week for bringing in TDs in a TD director school, which is awesome. I've already applied. I encourage everyone else, if you want to be a TD, apply, learn how to be a TD, learn, even if you are a TD, learn more. But there's so many other benefits that the PDGA brings, like discount codes, trainings, all of those. But I think the awareness of that isn't quite here yet. I think that when you tell people that the PDGA brings more than the competition number, they may not know that. And people who aren't part of the PDGA may not be aware of that. So it brings a lot of benefits, but we maybe need some more awareness for those benefits.
Yeah. And so, along with all of those things that are being offered, is there anything else different that you feel like they should receive as a benefit? I know you summarized a lot of them, which is awesome. Is there anything else that you think they should or shouldn't receive?
Yeah, I think in my personal view, the PDGA is doing a good job offering a lot of the benefits where they can. But I think there's an offering that we can find for the non-competitive disc golfer. A lot of people have talked over the years about handicap systems. Those are really difficult for disc golf because our courses are so different than ball and stick golf courses. But that's an area where I'd like to continue exploring. Can we bring to the less formally competitive, I should say, disc golfers, something that draws them in and something that makes the PDGA more than just a charity to them, but rather actually, gives them a reason to be invested and to have a PDGA number.
Okay, well, that again kind of leads right to our next one, which says, how do you think we can increase PDGA membership, and how can we grow the sport in underserved areas? And also, how do we reach new members?
I've stolen a little bit of my answer on the last question, so we'll dig a little bit deeper into some of the ideas that I have. One of the areas that I think is really relevant is an area that a lot of people touch on. Several of the candidates last year have touched on it, and they're already on it, working on initiatives on the board on them. But that's getting into schools. The collegiate program is awesome. It's developed. It's maybe even underserved because we don't talk about it enough. I love watching the videos and the coverage from there, but it feels like so fast. It's here and it's gone in the blink of an eye. My thoughts are, how do we continue developing that at even lower levels? When's the first high school championships going to be? When are we going to have state sanctioned school events? Several board members are already working on that. I'm hopeful to jump on board and be part of that initiative. How do we help with that? Beyond that, I think that one of the biggest parts of disc golf is really straightforward for being involved is you need a course. You need somewhere to play. While throwing at trees is awesome, and I've done it many times, it's not near as fun as seeing the disc fly into a basket. So we have to start asking ourselves, how do we make courses more accessible to more people? There's awesome foundations out there throughout the world trying to develop them in other countries. Urban centers are difficult often to develop them in. I happen to live in St. Louis, which has a lot throughout our city, but some of the more densely populated areas don't have as much land space available to develop courses. Without developing courses there, we can't access as many people. So how do we develop courses in those urban areas that allow us to draw more people in and bring them to courses maybe away from the city for tournaments, but still have somewhere to play locally? So I'd like to investigate that and understand, with the resources the PDGA has available, what we can do to help further those and how we can help, maybe even on the political landscape, to use connections and contacts to get those moving.
Okay, well, and that continues, I think, at all facets in terms of growing. And you're talking college level, going even earlier than that, high school, and then possibly even earlier than that. Like you said, I know we've got a lot of good programs, and there's resources out there. Maybe just a matter of sharing them and getting them out there to more people. Next, I'll follow up with, how does the PDGA increase the number of competitive events, and how can we make events more accessible?
So I think increasing the number of competitive events, in my mind, often comes down to finding people who are willing to run them. TDs seem to be swelling there for a while with COVID. You had a lot of people that said, I really want to run events. But in a lot of local scenes, a lot of people that I talk to, it seems like we're not seeing the influx of TDs that we want to, people who are willing to run these events and people who are willing to volunteer at these events. I think we need to continue to develop our ways of how we do that. Flex events have evolved a great deal over the years that allows tournament directors to often go play in their own events, which is something that's held people and someone who gets to run the event. I think furthering our ability to do that, allowing people to be TDs, making it more accessible and helping them to understand how easy it is to be a TD is important. I also think helping to train TDs to be able to take the criticism or to avoid the criticism by running events well is really important. So I'm really excited about the new program that was just launched, and I'm excited to see where that goes. And if, as a part of the board, I can help to further that program and develop it and take the feedback from it and keep building on it to build more TDs. As far as drawing in competitors, once you have those, I think the PDGA has to really consider how the fee structure is, how we're signing up players for those events, what it costs. In some cases, especially amateur levels, the the cost of doing an event or participating in an event may be prohibitive. And there might be an awesome players pack that comes associated with it. But for someone who's been an amateur for a number of years, the players pack may not have the incentive it has to the new player. So I hope to work with the PDGA and to understand the justification and reasoning behind that, and to be able to work to see what we can do for making events truly affordable for players to run while still being profitable experiences for the groups that run them, whether that be just in terms of how good it feels to the TDs, or also for the businesses that run them, the income they're able to generate from those events and the periphery actions around them.
Yeah, and this is a complete editorial note on my behalf. I'll share that I know one thing we've seen the PDGA do in the last couple of decades is develop the trophy-only options. And maybe even that, I'm going to say, is a possibility for our clubs and our tournament directors to maybe further explore trophy-only, because it comes with a lower entry fee, and then some of the things that you get, like a players pack, may get reduced, but it may still get those players in the door. And again, that's my editorial note. People can take it or leave it as it is. But I just wanted to follow up on a point that you're making, that maybe just the acknowledgement and the broadcasting of that trophy-only option is possibly one way that we could get to the mission that you're looking for.
Absolutely. And I think that, you adding that editorial note points out something that I think is really valuable, in that there's not enough awareness in all cases. I'm a pretty aware member of the community. I read a lot of things because it's part of who I am as an engineering nerd in a lot of cases, that I go out and I read all these things, but even I'm not aware of all of the accessible items that we have to be able to turn those knobs. So how do we make people more aware of that? How do we raise our TDs to be more of that and help them to figure out what the players value the most?
Well, we certainly know that TDs, and it's said all the time, TDs are the lifeblood of our sport. Yes, we have players, but the players love competition, and competition comes largely under the guise of a TD or a group or a staff taking on a tournament, providing that structure, and then offering that up to the players. So as you mentioned all of that, that kind of leads us to the next question, which is where do you think the PDGA is falling short? And where do you think the PDGA should focus their time?
So I think one area the PDGA is falling short is in how it broadcasts its decisions, its topics, and the challenges it's facing. I think if you look at it from a financial standpoint, I canvassed a number of people to try and better understand the topics they were concerned about, the people I would hope to be representing. And I asked almost all of them, where do you feel like the PDGA is spending money that they shouldn't be? And every single one of them said, I don't know where the PDGA is spending money. There's ways that people can find that. You can go out and research that, but it's not extremely accessible. And it's something that's important, because as we look at, we're hoping that people will be willing to join our cause, and in some cases buy a membership just for the sake of giving that money across to the PDGA. They need to know what that money is doing, how it's benefiting them, and what it is, because it is benefiting them in a number of ways beyond just the competition side. And I think that's a pretty quick and easy step that we can take. Something, if you want to set small footstep goals as I enter the board, bringing up that awareness, bringing up that availability of information to those who are interested, and maybe even pushing it, those people who didn't know they were interested. I think that's something that's a pretty quick first step that the PDGA maybe hasn't done the best job in.
I'll follow that up with, again, kind of a personal question to that is do you see a specific path in terms of sharing that information? Of course, there's the website, there's Facebook, there's social media outlets, but and a newsletter that comes out once or twice a week from the PDGA. Do you have anything in mind in particular? I'm going to just drill down on you. Is there anything in mind in particular for how sharing that information is something, how you go about sharing it better?
Yeah, I think the social channels the PDGA has developed are awesome. They're well utilized in many cases for most of what the PDGA is looking at doing. But oftentimes it's somewhat in the form of long form articles, which I personally enjoy reading. I love my email blast. I love clicking on the link and, okay, what do we got to buzz through here? But I don't know if that's for everybody. So I think as we develop into newer generations, maybe some shorter attention spans in places, maybe some different types of attention spans, a different form of communication might be necessary. That's not to say we need to get into YouTube shorts and short video styles to make these communications, but graphical images and other short forms can go a long way towards educating it. A tweet had a lot of impact there for a while, and to a lot of degrees, the mentality of that still does. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for the PDGA there to expose a different generation to the statistics that maybe didn't even know were available.
Okay, I love it. I guess, like, do you feel like you answered also where do you think they should focus their time? The PDGA should focus their time. Is that
No, it's a good
kind of all in your answer there, or is there something else you want to add to
Well,
that?
that's a good follow-up, because I think, that small step that I'm hoping that we can take rather quickly maybe isn't where we need to focus a lot of time, right? A quick bit of focus will get us there, hopefully very quickly. But I think there's other areas where we can focus some time. I think it's going to roll back a lot to that accessibility question from before. Is how do we make the sport more accessible? We talked a little bit about schools. We talked a little bit about urban areas. Making it more accessible to different groups of people. That'll delve into the diversity and inclusion, but it's really the accessibility for those people. If you look at, let's say, gender protected divisions in lower AMs, oftentimes you don't have enough to make a division. How can the PDGA focus its time to bring in those competitors and then also incentivize those competitors to stick around? Maybe there's a difference in the fee structure that we need, but I think that's something that you can't just do on a whim. You need to focus some time and study that data and say, okay, how do we strategically within the competition landscape bring those people in, rather than just focusing on how do we get them to disc golf at large and then migrate them eventually to competitive scenes. Let's take the competitive players we have and incentivize them to come up and show. That way we can have better built divisions, especially in lower serviced areas.
Well, and I'll personally follow up and say one thing I love about the diversity that we have within the board and all of our members is hearing someone like you talk about the idea of analyzing some data and then making maybe some decisions based on your engineering background, as opposed to somebody else in a very different field, whether it's financial or environmental or whatever. To me, it's always interesting to see how everyone arrives at a slightly different answer for some of the problems that are ahead of us. So I look forward to that. Believe it or not, we're pretty much at the end, and at the end, you have carte blanche. We can, I can go ahead and say, is there anything that we missed? And if so, anything you want to talk about? This is an open floor with absolutely no restrictions. So if there's anything that we didn't talk about or that you weren't prompted on through this standard set of questions, feel free to share it with everybody now.
I think that's Terry's version of telling me I talk too fast here. So I gotta chalk up some more here, which is great because I have a lot. I think that there are some areas that the PDGA board can additionally focus on that I'd like to look into. I think the course development tools that we have and the course maintenance tools are something that the PDGA has started to develop over the past several years. There's things you can find from the board about how to maintain courses. I think we can continue to develop that. I think maintaining courses is a really important part of where we are, especially as we continue to try and grow the sport. The percentage rate has dropped of how fast we're adding members, but that's because we have more. We're still adding a lot year over year over year, and there's even more potentially playing the sport that aren't PDGA members. The wear and tear that's going to put on our courses is going to be something that from a sustainability aspect can be very difficult. Now, some of our most amazing courses that are really well-built grass fields that are well-maintained and have a lot of volunteer efforts around them, keeping mulch around the baskets, don't wear out as quickly. But some of our other courses in floodplains and lesser used areas, which is great places to put courses because of the land accessibility, they need love and care. And we need to know what the best way to love and care for those is. That way we don't have volunteers breaking their backs on efforts that aren't going to lead to the long-term sustainability. So I'd really love to work with initiatives, see what tools the PDGA has in mind and what we can further to allow people to say, hey, planting this type of grass in this area is going to help, maintain the fairways better. Or maybe grass isn't the right solution here. Maybe concrete tee pads aren't the right solution in every location because of the erosion that they have with them, and we need to think of other alternatives. The PDGA has resources in its people, in its large array of people who are involved to be able to help guide some of those decisions. So sustainability is a big one on my list of how do we help people understand the sustainability of their courses. Another one I love to work on is accessibility to building courses themselves. I think when you first look at how do I build a course, there's so many options. There's so many basket options, and there may not be the awareness that a lot of the manufacturers really want to work with you. They want to help you put that course in. And so the price that you see on the internet the first time that drives you away isn't necessarily the price you can work with to put a course in. It might be the price you pay to have a personal basket, but it's not going to necessarily be what it takes for a club to put a course in. Further, I think there's a lot of political aspects. We touched on that a little bit earlier, where the board can help to understand what the revenue, the usage of courses might be to encourage city parks departments to say, oh, this is worthwhile. And also to understand from a parks department standpoint what the cost of maintaining that course is going to be, from grass cutting and standard maintenance down to safety regulations around the course itself. That then leads into the whole topic of how to design safe courses. Are there possibilities within the board to review courses as they go in and say, hey, we think you can make these recommendations without it costing an arm and a leg to have somebody design it for you? There's a lot of great course designers out there, but some of them cost a lot of money to be able to put, which may not be accessible to clubs. So that sustainability and growth and strategic methods to get there rather than kind of open-ended long projects are things I'm excited to work on initially, while I get to know the rest of the aspects of the board, the political nature of it, and the longer term initiatives that I can be involved in.
Excellent. And I do not want to put words in your mouth, but I feel like two of the strongest themes that I heard throughout most of these questions is sustainability of our existing members and our membership base, and then sustainability and growth of actual courses. And yes, you have a lot of other topics that you touched on, but those to me seem like they resonated maybe the loudest. Would you agree or contradict that? I don't want to put words in your mouth. I think that's what I was hearing.
I think you summarized it really well, and I'm glad that's what you heard from what I said, because while there's a lot of things around the fringes, I think those are two of the keys that we need to focus on.
All right. Well, Dustin, I appreciate the time that you've given us. I know all of our members do. I first of all will applaud anyone that has put their hat in the ring for this. And then also I really want to thank the PDGA, who has branched out in these last couple of years in terms of finding more mediums to share the messaging, to share the qualifications of our members and of our people that are running for the board, people like yourself, having the nomination committee, then getting to this point, and people have write-ups. There's things online. You can read more about Dustin all on the PDGA front page. That's out there available, but hopefully people are finding an audio version, maybe as you're heading to work or wherever, are finding this valuable as well. So I'm going to thank you one last time, and then I'm going to read some of the fine print because we're all here for voting purposes. And so somebody says, how can the members vote? I'll read it. It says, during the first week of the elections, all PDGA members who are current as of June 25th, 2025, and for whom the PDGA has a valid email address, so make sure it's current, they will receive online election instructions, including their individual ballot. The PDGA will send the ballot weekly to those who have not yet voted. If members don't receive an email, send an email to elections@pdga.com with your name and PDGA number, and they'll get it taken care of. So, Dustin, one last time, thank you so much. Thank you for putting your hat in the ring, like I said, and trying to become a PDGA global board member. Just the fact that you're here and putting this effort says a lot to our membership, and it says a lot to the PDGA overall. So thank you again for joining. Have a good night.
Thanks, Terry.
Hello, everyone, and welcome in for another edition of Getting to Know Our PDGA Global Board of Director Candidates. I'm Terry Miller, and today I'm joined by Matt Rothstein. He's going to be talking to us about all the questions that we see from the PDGA's perspective in order to become a PDGA board member. Matt, the first one is super easy. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Terry, thank you so much for having me here. Matt Rothstein, PDGA 51515. I've been playing the sport since I was a teenager, 30 years. I've been 12 years a PDGA member and a former staff member. I was the PDGA's media manager from 2020 to 24, which is a pretty exciting period in the PDGA's history. And, you and I spent a lot of time on the course together. So I've seen the PDGA from all sides, as a player, as a community organizer, as a staffer from the inside at the biggest events. So I've got a pretty wide perspective. I love the organization, and I'm running because I think it can do better, and I've got a pretty clear vision of kind of the changes I want to see.
All right. Well, you've already jumped right into the first question, which is perfect. It's a great segue. I'll give it to you in two parts, which is, why are you running for the Global Board of Directors, and what will your priorities be?
Yeah, I'm running for the Global Board of Directors to put forward a proposal that I'm calling the Members' Bill of Rights. These are some simple reforms that really push the PDGA to be more transparent, to be more accountable, and to be more responsive to the members. They're very specific proposals. It's pretty unusual for a candidate to be running for the board with very specific proposals, but that's what I'm doing, and it kind of simplifies things for me a little bit. When people take a look at my platform, they'll know what they're getting. They'll know what my priorities are. Things like open board meetings, things like independent oversight, things like members having a say when the PDGA goes to change its bylaws. So fundamental changes. I want to get the members more involved. And so, if that sounds good to you, take a closer look at my members' bill of rights, and you can know that a vote for Rothstein is a vote for that platform.
Well, and that also follows up with the question, which is which issues will you choose to champion from the seat on the board? And is it pretty much everything you just said?
Yeah, it's everything I just said. I think that being the governing body of the sport is a tough position for those board members to be in. No matter what you do, you're going to get a lot of criticism, a lot of flack from all sides. So there's a temptation to kind of close off, to want to have your discussions behind closed doors, and I totally get that. But the members at the end of the day are the ones who should really be driving this organization. They're the ones who vote for the board members, and so I think they really need to be keyed in on what's going on, what the discussions are taking place, and how their representatives are representing them on the board. So yeah, I think it's a really important change that I'd like to see.
All right. Well, now we'd like you to tell us about your educational and work background, and how do your skills and experience make you the right choice?
Yeah, I went to school to get a music degree, which no regrets. I love music. I'm currently working in the school system, teaching music. So it's been a really rewarding path there. But my real professional background that's relevant to this position is as a media producer. I got started making videos for local clubs here in Northern Colorado. Really got deep into it when I moved to Baton Rouge and got involved with the Kingfish Disc Golf Club there. And that really helped me level up to producing media on the national and global stage. And so, I've produced a ton of content for the PDGA. I've produced something like 30 commercials for the PDGA. All the ads that are still running were produced by my team. The Holy Shot, which featured our very own Terry Miller, was one of my signature projects there. So yeah, it's content production, but it's also a lot of organizational strategizing. To get these big projects produced, you need to work with all the different departments. You need to get buy-in from the stakeholders. You need to get approval by the board to get these things budgeted. So I really, I've got a good feel for the sport. I've spent time on the ground at the biggest events. I've also worked behind the scenes navigating the bureaucracy at the PDGA. So I've had my hands in both of those worlds, and I think that sets me up pretty well.
All right. And what type of benefits do you think the PDGA members should receive?
Uh, Benefits for the members, I think that this is something the PDGA has worked on a lot. We've worked on developing technology. We've developed content. We've give discounts for access to coverage on the Disc Golf Pro Tour. These are all great things, and I support trying to expand the benefits that the members receive. But I really think at the end of the day, we've lost sight of the number one benefit that we can offer our members, which is to serve them and to act as a true representative government governing body to give the members a real voice in the future of our sport. That is the number one benefit that I think the PDGA can offer the members, and I think it's been lost. If we get back to that focus, I think a lot of the other things fall into place because we get great feedback, we get great ideas from the membership. They're involved with the decision-making processes. They're more engaged in committees. They're voting in bigger numbers. They understand the issues, and those things are all going to have net positive effects, making the members feel like they're really getting something back from the organization.
Well, speaking of the members, we're going to kind of keep with that theme. And it's asked, how do you think we can increase PDGA membership, and how can we grow the sport in underserved areas, and how do we reach new members?
I've got some ideas, from having worked in the media and marketing department about how we can kind of get the word out. I don't think the PDGA has necessarily done a good job of advertising outside of the disc golf bubble. We tend to focus a lot of our advertising on our website and on tour coverage and Jomez, and all those things are really important. But there's a whole world of disc golfers out there, a whole world of potential disc golfers out there that we should be reaching out to through, not what they call non-endemic advertising. So getting outside the disc golf bubble. But I think those things can be important to make a difference, but also I want to bring it back to this idea of member engagement and trust, because I think at the end of the day, the way the PDGA has always been built, the way our real numbers have grown is through word of mouth. It is disc golfers telling their friends about the organization, inviting them to tournaments, telling them about PDGA numbers, telling them about PDGA ratings. I mean, that's our strongest channel to reach people. And if people aren't feeling good, if they're not trusting the PDGA, if they don't feel like they have a real voice or connection, I think they're much less likely to do that word of mouth advertising for us. And so I really do feel like these fundamental foundational changes could have a real downstream impact on things like participation, membership numbers.
Do you think, I'll drill down just a little bit and say, do you think there's anything specific for how we get to these underserved areas? Of course, I know there's foundations and there's things doing, have, these agendas, but is there anything specific that jumps out at you that you'd love to see in getting to an underserved area?
Yeah, I think the work that's being done to put courses in places that are very strongly represented, both internationally and also in the U.S. and cities that don't have access to disc golf courses. I mean, that's bread and butter strategy for the PDGA and something really need to lean into it. I know the Macbeth Foundation has really been leading the way on this, and I'd like to see us help those efforts as well as really lean into our own initiatives. Those disc golf courses out there are just like perennial gardens that keep every year, bringing new players to the game. And even if there's nobody out there introducing them to the game, the course itself invites people out. And so I think course expansion is so important. I also think, just to pick one of the underrepresented groups, getting women to participate in higher numbers has always been a challenge for the PDGA. And I think it's one of our biggest opportunities, frankly, because we've got such a strong set of superstars on the women's side of the sport. These unbelievable ambassadors like Kristen Tatar, like Paige Pierce. Kristen, I know at one point I saw a list where she was the second or third most marketable disc golfer, in the entire sport. And so we really need to take advantage of that superstar power. I remember my first big event was 2013. I went to the Memorial in Arizona. And I found myself warming up on the same basket as Sarah Hokum. She had no idea who I was, and I certainly knew who she was. But I was, I was starstruck, and really, that kind of experience just shows me what a connection these women at the top of the game can have across the sport, encouraging other women to play. And so anything we can do to amplify their voices, to expand coverage, to grow their portion of the payouts and the purse, I think that's what we really need to lean into.
Yeah, I believe we're somewhere around 7% of our overall membership is somewhere between 7 and 9% is women. And it's certainly been a challenge and an opportunity, I think, for decades. And just trying to get more female representation overall is certainly an opportunity, like I said, for the entire PDGA. I agree with you there.
Well, thank you.
So,
Just one, if you don't mind, one more point there is,
yeah, of course.
just looking back at the PDGA's history, I think we need to take a little bit of accountability for the way that the PDGA has handled this situation. Starting from the very first World Championships in 1982, there was no women's division. When Ed Hedrick ran the first World Frisbee Championship in the mid 70s, there was no women's division. And so this is a bad foot to get started on. This sends the wrong message. So I think we need to recognize these shortcomings that we've had in the past and really put the extra effort in to make up for it.
Okay, well, that kind of leads right into, as we're talking about getting new players out there in competition, as you even just referenced a minute ago. The next one is, how does the PDGA increase the number of competitive events, and how do we make the events more accessible?
Great question. We've actually done pretty well, I think, in growing events. We got close. If we didn't hit 10,000 events in the last couple of years, I think we were close. So that's been great. But we need to continue. We need to continue that trend, and I think encouraging new TDs to get to stick their toes in the water and to get some experience is the number one priority. And at my time in the PDGA, I was one of the people who was spearheading things like PDGA Rules School, PDGA TD School video series, educational products that would really reach people and make it feel accessible for somebody who wanted to try to run a tournament to get the information, understand what they needed to have lined up before they start their first tournament.
And is there anything about making them more accessible? I know you just mentioned TDs. How about for the players as well? Is there anything in particular for accessibility to players, or maybe you feel we've hit the right mark?
I mean, we're doing a lot of the right things, honestly. We've got a nice funnel system starting with the PDGA leagues and C tiers, which are really accessible. The leagues, especially, the rules are a little bit lax, and we can kind of ease people into getting a feel for sanctioned play. But, honestly, at the end of the day, I hope people play tournaments and I hope that the PDGA membership expands. Those are really important goals. But I also think that the PDGA needs to take ownership of its role as the governing body of the sport and not just of the members. And so even if players don't want to compete in events, even if they just want to go throw frisbees around in the park, which is how I started, and I wasn't a PDGA member for the first 15 years that I was throwing discs. The PDGA, if they're going to be the real governing body of the whole sport, they need to feel like they represent those players as well as the tournament players.
Well, that sounds like there's some opportunities. And the question here is then, where do you think the PDGA is falling short? And where do you think the PDGA should focus their time?
Well, I touched on this a little bit before, but the PDGA, when they're on the receiving end of a lot of criticism, as they always will be, that's part of the nature of being in a leadership position and being the government. They need to grow tougher skin, and they need to still, even though they're taking criticism, they need to be open about their processes so that people can be educated about the issues that are on the table. These issues, they tend to be oversimplified in the media. They tend to be sensationalized in the media, and in the lack of real, open, transparent information, people are left to speculate. So we've got these podcasts that, entertaining as they are, they're really built on speculation because that's really all they have to go on. So I think that the PDGA needs to fill this information void. They need to really do more to educate the members, especially the highly engaged members, the people that go out and vote in PDGA elections, so that these people who love disc golf, love the PDGA, can go out on the internet on these forums and counteract some of these kind of wilder, speculative theories that are out there. Let's fill the speculation and the darkness with light and information.
Uh, I'll ask the follow up to that, which is there anything in particular where maybe you see an opportunity to do that? Any specific medium or route or platform that you feel like is an area of opportunity?
Yeah, absolutely. Right now I think that the PDGA does a pretty good job of getting member feedback for something like rules changes. Although that has gone sometimes better, sometimes worse in the past. I know there have been a few rules where we maybe got out ahead of where the players wanted us to be and kind of had to pull back. But in general, the process for updating rules where we're collecting member input and we're involving the committees, I think that's a model for how the PDGA could be making decisions in other areas like event developments, like international growth, like fundamental changes to our bylaws. These are key areas. It shouldn't just be the rules of play on the course, but also the rules that govern the PDGA itself, the rules that govern the board. Those are things that the members should be educated on, should be involved with.
Okay. Well, it might sound crazy, but we're pretty much near the end. And with all that, I know we've had all these, we'll say, stock questions that all candidates are going to be answering. At the very end, we've got an open-ended one, which is there anything that we missed? If so, take some time and tell us anything else that's on your mind.
Well, this sport is grown from the bottom up. This is a grassroots sport where people are out there getting their hands dirty, installing courses themselves, running leagues themselves. The PDGA's job is not to do it all. The PDGA's job is to is to remove barriers for all these hardworking volunteers, for all these passionate disc golfers out there, and to make sure that they're set up for success. And so that's the way the organization was really founded on. In 1986, the PDGA, their first constitution was ratified in almost a completely unanimous vote. There was only 2 votes against the original PDGA constitution. It was drafted by Ed Hedrick, and it was really meant to ensure that the PDGA members always had a key seat at the table, that they could see what was going on, that they could weigh in on important decisions. And so we've drifted away from that a little bit as we've gotten larger, and that's understandable. But I think we really need to refocus on some of these core foundational principles. It's not just us; it's other sporting organizations, FIFA, the IOC, USA Gymnastics. If you look at their recent history, they've all undergone some scandals, some criticisms, some PR issues, and they've all responded with these transparency reforms, with these reforms that are meant to restore confidence by opening up their processes to their members. And so this isn't something that's foreign to the PDGA. This isn't something that's foreign to sporting governing bodies. This is best practice, and so I'm really trying to champion this idea that the PDGA can do it. We can do it, and it's really going to improve our relationship with our members, and it's going to set us up for continued growth in the future.
Yeah, and I'll just from my personal perspective, I'll say it's often asked, well, what does the PDGA do? What are they in charge of? And those types of questions come up often. And so to see and hear someone talking about really wanting to push some of that transparency and some of those initiatives forward, I think a lot of members could certainly appreciate that, and maybe members and non-members alike that can learn more about it. So I appreciate your position in that sense. I thank you for sharing everything. And I'll say, which I've said to everyone, anyone that's willing to just put their hat in the ring, to go through this process, through the initial stages, to then get to this stage as we kind of whittle down in terms of our candidates, to then put yourself out there, share your experiences and your thoughts and everything that you've done along with your work history. I just want to again commend you and thank you for getting yourself this far, and for putting yourself out there to be a board member for all of our members out there. So I very much appreciate that.
Well, thank you, Terry. And likewise, I want to commend the other candidates for doing just what you said, for putting their hat in the ring, and for working hard to improve the sport. And you yourself, you do so much work, and I know everyone out there is appreciative of what you do.
I appreciate that. Well, I have just the final thing to read for everyone in case you've gotten this far and you need to know more details about how you can vote, what this is all for, what it all matters for. The answer is, during the first week of the elections, the PDGA members who are current as of June 25th, 2025, and for whom the PDGA has a valid email address, they'll receive online election instructions, including your individual ballot. The PDGA will send the ballot weekly to those who have not yet voted, so you get reminders. If members don't receive an email, please email elections@pdga.com with your name and the PDGA number, and they'll get it out to you, and it'll all go through a very streamlined and easy process in order to get out there and vote. So with that, Matt, again, thank you for your time. Thank you for the consideration of being a PDGA Global Board member. I certainly appreciate it, as do all the members. Good luck to you, and we'll catch everyone at the next one.
Thank you, Terry.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back for another edition of Getting to Know Your PDGA Global Board of Director candidates. I've got standard questions all put together for all of our candidates, and today I'm going to welcome in Laura Nagtegaal, PDGA number 44969. Laura, thank you for joining, and we're going to get to the easiest question of them all, which is, please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, Terry. Thank you for having me, and thank you, listeners, for listening to me. I'm Laura Nagtegaal. I started playing disc golf in 2010 because I asked my sister if I could come watch. She gave me a putter. That's still my main putter. And the rest is history. I've been a board member basically since 2015 with a 2-year hiatus. I've been a PDGA Europe interim administrator for 2 years, PDGA Europe tour manager for 4 years, and I'm running for, I think it's my 5th term at the PDGA Global Board of Directors. And
for
in my
any,
spare time, I'm actually working in the live music industry, and I've been doing this for 30 years now.
Thank you. And I was just going to make one additional note. You are one of a very few international candidates. Can you tell everyone where you're located or what you call your residency?
Yes, I am. I'm based in the Netherlands. The city I live in is Utrecht, another one of the Flemish sounding ones. And I was indeed the first non-North American board member. I want to give credit to Elaine King for being the first non-US based one, but I'm the first non-North American one. And right now I'm joined on the board since last year by Terry Kuta.
Well, we know that Elaine King has certainly blazed the trail in many ways. So awesome to see. Well, let's get right to it. And the very first one that I really have for you is, why are you running for the Global Board of Directors, and what will your priorities be?
I'm running again. Like I said, this is, I believe, my 5th term. And I still think my work isn't done. And my 3 main pillars are making disc golf better for more people, more enjoyable, for them to be on the fairway. Globalization is a big key component of that. Still, about 80% of the members are US based, but the rest of the world is so much larger. It's impossible to understand why there's only about 20% of the members outside of the USA. The same goes for more diversity and inclusion, more people of color, more gender diversity, more ability. Like, disc golf can be so much more diverse than it is. And the third pillar is trying to make the professional level even more professional, because that's our billboard. If that looks good on ESPN, we as the sport and the vast majority of disc golfers are amateur players. They will probably never get to that level, but they will reap the benefits of the professional level being where it is or where it could be. And these are basically the 3 main pillars of what I'm advocating for in making disc golf and the PDGA the best it can be.
And are there any specific issues you'll choose to champion from the seat on the board? And I know you have those 3 main pillars, but is there any specific issues?
What I've been most vocal about is through my work on the Women's Committee, Diversity and Outreach Committee, there is no logical reason why only 7.3% of the members play in gender-based divisions. There is no reason for that other than trying to understand why socially this has grown and why it still is that case. Because there's no reason that a woman cannot play disc golf. They should be able, they want to. Why don't we manage to attract and retain them? When I joined the Women's Committee in 2016, that was our motto: attract, retain, and we still haven't gotten past the 7%. So that's like a long-term issue, and I keep, like a broken record, I keep pounding on that, like, people, we can do better on this. We need to do better. We need to want to do better. And for that, we need to want to understand what it is.
Well, it certainly has been. I've been around for more than 30 years in the PDGA, and those numbers, whether it's anywhere between 5 or 9%, or as you're saying, or 7.5%, whatever the case might be, it certainly is an area of opportunity. I completely agree with you there.
Absolutely.
The next one is, tell us about your educational and work background, and how do those skills and experiences make you the right choice?
I'll try to do justice to it because obviously the education system that I've enjoyed is very different from the one in the US. But I've got a college equivalent diploma, and after that I went to university. First I studied computer science, but I quit and switched to psychology, neither of which really have an impact on how I present myself or do what I do. I'd like to believe that I've got a pretty solid brain. I can get things done, but my education hasn't really helped or prevented me from doing things in my disc golf related activities. It's maybe more a different perspective, providing it because of being European, not North American. I'm when I joined on the board of directors, I was the youngest one at 40 then, which is actually shocking to me. Why would the youngest board member be 40 years old? Right now, I'm sort of right in the middle, but it's fine. I do believe that I provide a social perspective to disc golf and issues in disc golf that many do not possess or many do not give any importance to. And that's maybe that's part of my education. I think it is not, but it may be. And my professional background is in live music industry. I've started doing that in '95, full time as a self-employed person since 2002. If anything from there that I bring to the table, being a global board of directors member, is getting it done. There's deadlines, there's issues. You need to be both reactive and proactive, but not be ad hoc. But you still need to get it done, and that takes a certain kind of person to be able to do that. And I think that part of that I bring to the table being a board member.
Okay. The next one is, what type of benefits do you think the current PDGA members should receive?
Other than the ones that they currently do?
I mean, maybe you want to expand on the ones that you really feel are valuable, or maybe you prioritize some of the ones that we are doing, introduce new ones, whatever the case might be. But what type of benefits do you think current PDGA members should receive?
I think that the benefits current members do receive are pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to do away with all of them. If you become a member, you get X% discounts with that third party or that third party, because that's not actually benefit, it's benefiting the third party at only half cost, at only half interest, profit. That was the word I was looking for. But that's not a direct benefit to the PDGA member. And I do say it's a pretty awesome set of benefits that they do receive, but I think the optics are that they don't. So we have a job to do to be better at explaining how awesome these benefits are indeed.
Okay. How do you think we can increase PDGA membership, and how can we grow the sport in underserved areas, and how do we reach new members?
We currently sit at about 100 to 120,000 PDGA members globally by year's end. And we've been there for a few years now. There is millions of people playing disc golf. Why don't we manage to tap into basically 90% of untapped potential among the people that are already playing disc golf locally, casually at their club through their national association that only applies to anywhere outside of North America. But yeah, there's a huge untapped potential, and the PDGA is currently working on that. But that's only been implemented about a year ago, so it's too early to say if that's actually bringing us what we're trying to achieve. But that's the low-hanging fruit, and we haven't benefited from it yet. And I'll take responsibility for that as well as being one of the board members that has been in the room longest. Yeah,
Yeah,
we
I was going
have
to say that
incredible potential.
yeah, I was going to say we do. I think of it personally, little editorial note. I think of it a lot like bowling in the United States, for instance. We have millions upon millions of recreational bowlers, and some of them only want to do it on a recreational level. But if there was enough benefit for them to maybe join some kind of organization that was a little bit more structured or organized, it might appeal to them. And like you said, that's low hanging fruit. They're already doing it, so we don't have to
Yeah,
convince them to play. We just have to show them some of the member benefits that might make it worth them to join us.
yeah,
And then in terms of,
absolutely. And
go
in
ahead.
that sense, what you say about bowling, there's millions of people playing it, but not as many are members. I keep using the example of if PDGA was a national sports association in my country. We've got 18 million inhabitants. If all of those members the PDGA has were based in the Netherlands, and that would be a Dutch sports association, we wouldn't even crack top 10 in sports association sizes. Obviously, soccer is the largest one by well over a million, but at 100 to 120,000, even in the Netherlands, it doesn't even crack top 10. And we are the global sports association, so there's so much untapped potential. And in Europe, the situation is a little bit different with national associations. They have a large amount of members, but not every national association member chooses or wants to or needs to or desires to also be a global member. And that's on us, I think, because if we don't make it clear enough to them that being a PDGA member is awesome, why should they? We can't force them. We need to make them want to be a member, and that's on us, because not enough people have wanted to become a member.
Yeah, and the last point I'll say on that is it's also very interesting that how the U.S. handles sports and sporting organizations and recognition versus how I feel like a lot of other countries do around the world, and they seem so much more structured. So certainly plenty of areas of opportunity, I guess, is the takeaway there. All right, the next one is, how does the PDGA increase the number of competitive events, and how can we make events more accessible?
How to increase the number? Add more weekends, right?
Okay, right.
Yeah, I think that up to a certain extent, I think the market is saturated as is. Um, we may we may be able to expand on it a little bit more, but for that we need TDs and supporting clubs and or national associations supporting the clubs, supporting the TDs. We need to get that structure more professionalized, I think, because the times that it's just Joe Bogey or Jane Bogey saying like, "Hey, I've got this tournament next week. Come to my backyard." Those times are gone. We can't get there anymore, or we shouldn't want to be there anymore, because that's not the events where disc golf comes to fruition. You can plant seeds, but you need to want to do better and be better. And for that, luckily now the TD training program is in place that will hopefully help more TDs say, I want to do this, feel empowered and feel knowledgeable enough to do this, but they still need the clubs and possibly the regional or national associations to buy into it as well. And then you need the players and the course and the permits, and so it's a whole catch 22. But unfortunately, all of it stands and falls with, do we have enough TDs? There's how many courses now globally? 10,000 maybe. So you could potentially have 10,000 events each weekend, minus weather situations and climate situations, obviously. But we could potentially have thousands of events each weekend. But we're currently at several hundred a weekend when it's high season.
Is there anything that you would do to make events more accessible? Is there anything in particular that jumps out at you as accessibility for events?
What we've done in recent years, and that's been a hot topic for me, having been on the Women's Committee and the Competition Committee, which is now part of RAC, and being a member of the Diversity and Outreach Committee, we have not done good enough a job at making sure that women competitors being eligible to play in gender-based divisions actually show up. If you just do the simple math, okay, 7% of the players are eligible to play, so we'll just provide 7% of the spots, plus or minus a few percent. You're not going to get there because, and that's where the social part comes in. I feel that it should be 50-50. 100 spots for the mixed divisions, 100 spots for the gender-based divisions. Obviously, there will be people saying like, yeah, but that's unfair because we're so many more. Yeah, that was a very fortunate situation for you having had so many spots. But it actually tells the other people in the gender-based divisions, you're not really wanted here. You're tolerated here. Well, if you must, we've got 4 spots for you in FP75, but you need to play with, and then you need to play with the juniors because someone needs to chaperone them. I'm happy with the merit divisions. That was a long struggle to get done. So if there's an MP65, there has to be an FP65. No longer forcing smaller divisions to be folded into larger divisions. No longer forcing a certain number of trophies for the smaller divisions. That helps, but for the moment it is still just a little drop on a hot tin plate. We can do more, but it's a good start. But we should ultimately go at even worlds. 144 spots for MPO, 140 spots for FPO. There's no reason it should be 144 and 96 or whatever proportion it is. There's no real reason for it. And the same goes for payout. But then, if inside the PDGA, the payout tables are based on division size, by keeping the division size small, you're keeping the payout small, and therefore you're keeping the career options small, etc., 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 etc. It all seems to be an unfortunate succession of events where basically it's, well, math, there's only one, so why should we offer 2? But if you then never offer 4 to allow for 3 to happen, you're going to stay with 2. And that's a very big issue. And I've been on the board of directors long enough to hear I hope they're something of the past, but you've been in the room for 30 years, you say. I hear the stories and the skin on my back crawls when I hear that in the US, installing courses in parks. The argument used was, well, if you allow us to install the course, we can keep the deplorables out. And the deplorables was often keyword for, and yeah, that keeps a large proportion of the population disenfranchised. And luckily, this way of getting courses installed is hopefully a thing of the past. But there seem to be more than one cases and issues where social problems are part of the disc golf DNA. And unless we want to address those, unless we're able to address those, we're not going to get at a very diverse, mixed group of disc golfers. The way I look at it now, if I'm going to see a disc golfer, the chances are very large. It's a person identifying as a man, clear skin, USA based. And that's not your typical disc golfer. It is by statistics, but not by design. But it seems to be by design, because whoever is not clear skinned or male or USA based seems to be not fully franchised. And that seems to be an unfortunate choice that I do my best to provide change for.
Yeah, we certainly are lacking diversity. I don't know that anyone could argue that in good consciousness. Suggests that we are a very diverse group, as you just basically explained.
It's very homogenous.
Yes, I would love to see more diversity within the U.S., but then clearly worldwide as well. All right, I'm going to move on to the next one, which is where do you think the PDGA is falling short, and where do you think the PDGA should focus their time?
Aside from what I just described, by fixing these problems, 99 problems are fixed, and then maybe one problem will still remain. But I think that what I described is by a large extent the largest dial to turn. If we turn that dial in the good direction, the future's golden.
Okay. I'll just drill down a little bit more. Is there anything, do you have any idea or specific thought or initiative to maybe increasing this diversity? As if I'm going off what you just said of really the last two questions, this is obviously a very, very strong point for you. Is there anything specific? Yeah. Is there anything specific then that you feel like, when we say they're falling short, well, what would you do to remedy that? Anything specific?
Without going into detail on what is said in chambers, because I don't share what is said in chambers, but you can imagine the dynamics of, well, we want to create more diversity, but if you say you want to do that, but you don't actually create space for diversity to appear and thrive, you're not going to get it by poof, it just materializes. No, you need to do a concerted effort, and it's more like the passive tolerance versus the active creating space. By actively creating space, by actively wanting to get more international countries. Oh, no, sorry, I won't use the word international because that makes the USA the default. By getting disc golf more global, spread across the globe, and of course there will be countries where there's more or less inclination to play disc golf or not. But by actively creating space for countries beyond the international program that Brian Honegger is already in charge of for 21 years, I think now, And the same goes for people eligible to play in gender-based divisions. If we don't actively do something to create space for them and hold space for them, it's not going to just happen overnight. And I'm sure you've played enough random draw doubles in your life. When's the last time you played random draw doubles?
Sometime last year. I don't play as
Okay.
much as I'd like to, but yeah, it was definitely last year at some point.
Yeah, fair enough. So last year, a person draws a card, and the other man, and another person draws the same card, woman. How many times do you still see the eye roll? Oh, can't
Yeah.
win because I'm with a woman. That
Yeah.
is part of the problem. And it's not the fact that the layouts aren't good enough. And I'm incredibly grateful for what Sarah Holcomb has done on getting appropriate layouts. That definitely helps. The Protect Her Game movement in 2020 that I was part of also helps. But as long as these eye rolls keep happening, we can't get where we want to. And that's actually a social issue that we want to try and address. If we don't address it actively, proactively, by wanting to do something about it, we won't get there. Then it'll still be a passive tolerance. And yeah, okay, well, yeah, we'll give you more spots, but we won't advertise for it, and we'll take them away after 2 weeks if you haven't signed up. But that'll still tell those people, you need to hurry up, and otherwise we'll take it away again. It's not indefinitely held for them. But for now, it's a good first step. But it can't be the only step made.
Okay, well, I will just quickly say to everyone listening, no matter who you draw for random doubles, I don't care if they're 200 points better or 300 points worse than you, be excited about it. Like that's my takeaway there, because it could be a deal breaker for someone to feel included and or feel like they even belong in the sport, no matter what their skill level or age or ability is. Be genuinely excited and look at it as a new friend potentially and a brand new experience. That's what I'll say. And I know exactly what you mean by those eye rolls. Is someone saying, "Oh, I got so and so," and that's just devastating to anyone's ego, no matter who you are, to hear or see that reaction.
If they're a new player, you will have pushed them away forever.
Yeah, I agree.
Could be your new world champion.
I completely agree with all of that. All right, well, believe it or not, we're actually already at the end of the predetermined questions, and then this one is usually the favorite one because I get to ask, is there anything that we've missed? And if so, please take the time and say anything that's on your mind, whether I asked it or something else you'd just like to put out in the world, whatever the case might be. This is your open floor to speak to the voters out there.
I think I've said most, if not all, that I want, because this getting the fairway more diverse and more enjoyable for everyone. Like, sure, we can quantitatively grow the fairway, grow the organization, but if we don't do it in a sustainable way where we get members who actually want to be members and feel happy and safe on the fairway, regardless of who their card mates or opponents or other users of the course are, we have so much more to do and so much more to achieve there. And that's what I'm here for in the room. And I hope that I get 3 more years to do that. And until further notice, this is going to be my last term. Should I be re-elected, I want to make good use of those 3 years. And back in 2014, when I got the 2013 PDGA Europe Volunteer of the Year award, Brian Honecker handed it to me. I said, I'll consider that my prematurely awarded Lifetime Achievement Award. And that's still the way I think. My job isn't done. I still have more to do, more to achieve, make disc golf better for more players. And yeah, that's what I'm here for. That's what I keep running for re-election for, because I think I still have input to give to make disc golf better for more people in an enjoyable, sustainable manner.
I'll say it. I know it was a number of years ago already. Again, congratulations, of course, on winning such a prestigious honor. I know you said you feel like you want to continue to build on that that you received many years ago. So congratulations on that. I want to say personally, thank you for the work that you've done on the board. Many people, I think, do not realize the full scope of everything that happens at the board level, and the fact that you've been through this process, that you've been on the board, you've implemented things and done things. I just want to say thank you for all your time and service. Of course, I wish you the best of luck here in 2025. So, but thank you for everything you've already done. And with that, I'm going to close this out by giving you guys some specifics in case you're unsure of how to vote or what the process is. So let me read it to you, which is: during the first week of elections, all PDGA members who are current as of June 25th of this year, and for whom the PDGA has a valid email address, so make sure your email is up to date, you will receive online election instructions, including an individual ballot. The PDGA will send the ballot weekly to those who have not yet voted, so reminders will keep coming. And so again, make sure your email is valid. If members don't receive an email, you can send an email to elections, plural, elections@pdga.com with your name and the PDGA number, and they'll make sure to get it to you. So that's how you can vote. And hoping everyone goes out there. This can be said of any election anywhere. Your vote matters. Your vote counts. Go out and be heard, and make sure it's in line with whatever you're looking for with priorities that may align accordingly. So, Laura, I want to say thank you one last time for joining. I appreciate you and all of the candidates that have put their hat in the ring to run for the board. We have 2 spots that will be available, and we've had 5 candidates that we're speaking with. So best of luck to you. And one final time, thank you for joining.
Thank you, Terry.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back for another installment of your PDGA Global Board of Director interviews, where I'm letting you get to know our candidates just a little bit better. I've got a script of essentially 8 or so questions that we're asking of all the board candidates. And today I'm joined by PDGA number 2450 in Conrad Damon. Conrad, thank you for joining us. The first question I'm going to say is the easiest. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, my name's Conrad Damon. I've been playing disc golf for an awfully long time, as you can guess from my PDGA number of 2450. And I got hooked on it quickly. I first played in Huntington Beach, but then really got hooked on it in my hometown of Kansas City. And I enjoyed it so much, once I found out there were tournaments, I wanted to start helping. So I eventually started looking at a number of volunteer roles, which I've done throughout the past few decades.
And have earned yourself quite a few accolades in doing so. So thank you for everything that you've done. We're going to move on to, why are you running for the Global Board of Directors? And what will your priorities be? And then what issues will you choose to champion from that seat? And I can repeat any of those. I know that's kind of 3 questions
I think that
in
was
one.
3 questions.
Yeah, exactly. But why are you running for the Global Board of Directors?
Let's take the first one. So I ran 3 years ago after having been on the board in the late 90s, early 2000s, then mostly turned my efforts to the rules. But then the reason I ran for the board a few years ago was because of the explosion in interest and participation due to COVID. I always like to ask a veteran player, a little bit of a trick question, like, what's the best thing ever to happen to disc golf? Some would say, well, the holy shot, or, the amazing Philo's amazing albatross. And I'm like, nope, those were great. It's COVID by a mile, because just everything really accelerated from our normal kind of geometric growth to an exponential growth cycle for a few years. And so that's what got me interested in returning to the board a few years ago. Now, the reason I want to run for a second term is just to continue that work now that I've really gained a deeper understanding of how things work, what our needs are, where we need to develop strengths, what are weaknesses that need to be addressed. And so I really have the context to be able to leverage the last few years going forward.
Yeah, and so I'll follow that up with the question of what issues will you choose to champion from a seat on the board?
Yeah, so one thing so we have a strategic plan that I think is really solid. We have a really capable and motivated staff in place. I'm really excited by all that. One of the particular initiatives we've been working on is to really put some resources into the development of clubs. And I think local clubs are really, at this point, underutilized. They're crucial to the growth of many other similar sports. And I think it also, local clubs provide a really good platform for addressing some of our longstanding weaknesses. For example, participation by women, which has always stayed kind of oddly low, and that's been a constant. We've tried various things, and we haven't really. And I think clubs are a possible avenue to address that.
Okay, go ahead and tell us about your educational and work background, and how do your skills and experiences make you the right choice?
Okay. Yeah, so I have a BA in English literature from Stanford. I came out from Kansas City to Northern California, where I remain. And I parlayed that degree in English immediately into a job working for a bank, programming a mainframe in assembly language, doing transaction routing. So I veered quite a bit, but it kept in line. I like solving problems. I like puzzles. I like especially logic puzzles or any kind of word puzzles. And so I have a very analytical approach to things. I like to get all the available information and evidence I can that is credible, and just basically apply reason and analysis to it, and to try to find a solution. I don't have particular agendas. I'm not particularly interested in the politics of a decision. I just want to find a solution. And so, within my work as the chair of the rules committee, that's what I was interested in. I mean, and it's not always easy to follow that path, but that's what I bring.
Okay. Next one is, what type of benefits do you think the current PDGA members should receive?
That's interesting, because right now we are an organization for tournament players. And so the benefits that a member receives are pretty much centered around their tournament experience. I think, obviously there's the ability to play in sanctioned tournaments, but even beyond that, I think personalized information like your rating. I think the rating has been huge for the sport. And I think that's something we could expand on. I mean, a few ideas have been floated around, but there's stuff that other things do, like you could, some fun things like badges, hey, this is, you just played in your 100th tournament, or, you shot a 900 or 1,000 rated round, or whatever. And I think that, just an aside, I think that could be used to incentivize clubs as well to publicize when clubs do something that will help the sport. So benefits for members. Yeah, I think right now it's primarily the tournament experience, although I think we would be well served to take a close look at expanding our reach beyond the tournament player and see what we have to offer the casual disc golfer. without going too far, I mean, the PDGA can't be all things to all people. We just don't have the resources for that. So we're well served by maybe setting up some partnerships to facilitate some of those things.
Okay. The next one is, how do you think we can increase PDGA membership, and how can we grow the sport in underserved areas?
Okay. I'll take that as two questions. Increasing membership, one thing I just mentioned is kind of opening our umbrella or our tent or whatever you want to call it to more than tournament players. I've advocated. I don't. I think we've looked into perhaps a lower cost membership for like a supporter or fan type level thing. I think that could be something where you get a login on the website. You can view the magazine online. You get some other potential benefits from that. And because right now the key to membership is tournaments, and that has a lot of resources that it needs. You need to find TDs, you need courses, you need venues, you need the administrative man work or work to be able to fuel that. So the second part of your question,
I was asking about underserved communities in terms of how can we grow the sport in an underserved area?
In underserved communities. I think there's two parts to that. There's getting a nearby course, because I don't think if you have a local accessible course that, an underserved community, the members aren't likely to travel to a course. So you do that. That is kind of the first step, is you need a venue. And then you run events. You run, fun, no cost, ideally. And we have some charitable organizations that already do this. And you run these no cost events to get, kids or even adults, whoever wants to try it out in a no stress, fun environment. It's obviously not focused on score. Everybody walks away with a disc or two, and hopefully has a positive experience, and, looks to come out on their own soon after.
Would you say the follow-up to all of that is in terms of the underserved areas and growing the membership? The follow-up question was, how do we reach new members then? Is that kind of piggyback on some of the things you were just saying?
Yeah, it does. In terms of, again, if we consider the members to be joining primarily because they want to play tournaments, you need to get them interested in becoming a, a dedicated enough player to want to enter a tournament. And so you do that, through the same mechanism. They need, really it all starts with having a local course. And obviously you can expect this. I mean, clubs are a great route to that, because they'll have the resources, the local pride, and the people to make these things happen. And I think it would be great when clubs do that they get recognized, to have something like a club section on the website, and, you have whatever. I mean, everyone can brainstorm, and you can have a lot, a featured club, or, hey, the, Altoona Hawks, they just signed up 30 new members. They ran this event. It was great. They got, so something like that.
Yeah, love it. And I know PDGA in the past has worked on various iterations of things like the PDGA affiliate club, and finding ways to support disc golf in that sense, and to support the club atmosphere. And I feel like that's continues to be a work in progress. And it sounds very much like it's a focus of yours, which I absolutely love.
Yeah, and it's still, and I consider our sport still relatively young, maybe in its adolescence. And the affiliate club program has been great. It's just, I think there's a whole bunch more potential there. Like I'd like to see, the next time we're at the Worlds or a major or something, when they announce players, instead of their hometown, it's, here's Paul Macbeth from the Huntington Beach Higher Flyers, or, Ricky Wysocki from, I don't, the Desert Disc Club or, whatever they're called down there,
Yeah.
I think that would be
makes
great.
perfect sense. That's
And then,
that's an idea I haven't otherwise heard before, and I certainly love it. Yeah.
right.
All right, we're going to move on with how does the PDGA increase the number of competitive events? You've talked about tournaments and players and such. You were just kind of piggyback on that.
Right.
How does the PDGA increase the number of competitive events?
One of the primary routes to that is, of course, you need a TD for every event, and behind the TD, you need what we call an LOC, a local organizing committee. So making it easier and more attractive for TDs and LOCs to run events is the best route to getting more events. Because in the old days, it used to be somebody doing it for the love of the sport out of the back of their truck, and they normally took a financial hit for doing it, but they loved doing it. And there's no reason to be anywhere near that model anymore. I actually think TDs are well within their rights to get paid and to take some sort of cut, because I haven't run May, but I have run at least one big tournament, and I think by now everyone understands, has a better idea of the scale of work and hours involved, and to that end we have we are taking steps there. We have a TD training package that's in beta now that I think is really cool. I mean, it really it's basically an online course that teaches you how to be a good TD, because before it was more in the area of lore. You talk to other TDs. What did you do? Who do I need to talk to at the city or county to get, and you just had to figure these things out on your own. So.
Yeah, I'll quickly interject. I remember some of the first words I heard as a TD from an area gentleman was, if you don't lose money, you've done a good job. You've run a successful event as long as you don't lose money, because that was even a task in itself. So the follow-up to that, maybe this TD training that you were just referencing speaks to this, but the follow-up is, how can we make the events more accessible? We're talking about competitive events and having more. How can we make the events more accessible?
By accessible, you mean so that they fill, or?
It just says, how can we make the events more accessible?
So, and I assume
take that, however, take that in
Sure.
any capacity, whether it's overall participation or the quantity of them. That's kind of in the scope of the first question.
Yeah,
but
I think the quantity is covered by the getting the TDs and LOCs to run more events. So once you have an event, how do you make it more attractive to players, or more accessible, easier for players to become involved? I think part of it is, and assuming, I mean, most events are C tiers. And so as long as those stay, and those are the most accessible ones, those, as long as the, tournament fees stay at a reasonable level. And especially I'm an advocate of, and most of our players are AMs. And I think one mistake we made early on was trying to basically make an AM tournament was the same as pro, except for instead of cash, you got script or an enormous pile of discs. But the entry fees were very similar, and the experience was pretty similar. And I used to always look at that and think, this is an odd interpretation of amateur. And so what I've seen, like actually in my local area, the AM part of a tournament I played was low entry fee, trophy only, which I think is not only in more keeping with the spirit of amateurism, but also it makes it more accessible. I mean, it could be a $25 entry rather than 120 or whatever it might be to be in line with the pro. And you don't walk away. The days of seeing somebody with a pile of 30 discs that sometimes they turn around, try to sell in the parking lot or whatever, and I know TDs like it because there's a guaranteed margin there, but I just don't think that's that's a great model. So one path to accessibility is, especially on the M side, is you go with the low entry fee, trophy only, nice little, maybe a package that gives you one reminder of the tournament, and make sure everyone has a good experience. So
Okay.
then on the pro side, pros are the serious players, so they are going to be more motivated to enter. So I think there's less we can or need do to make that side more accessible.
Okay, I like it. Next one is this is one of my favorites because I feel like everyone can speak their mind a little bit more. Is where do you think the PDGA is falling short?
Well, I mean, one thing I mentioned before that has been throughout our history is the percentage of women who are members. It's through my involvement with the sport, which is decades. It's always hovered around 7%, which is, I mean, again, if you just want to step aside as like a data scientist, it's kind of odd. Tennis and golf and even ultimate, which I consider basically our three comparables. They're all in the 30 to 40% range for women, female participation. And, it's really is a puzzle is why has ours always stayed steady at this much lower level? So, we've tried some things. I think some have been great. I love the women's global event is wonderful, and that was a success. But I don't know that we've seen the result in the membership numbers that we've hoped. So continuing to work on that. Yeah. So
well, okay. I guess I was going to then the follow up to that is that's an area where you're saying we fall short. Where do you think the PDGA should focus their time? And maybe you stick within that women's discussion you just had, or other stuff. It's open to whatever.
Somewhat, because I mean we do have a committee that is working on it. So, and I think in general, as I mentioned before, again I think Stork said at one point, the PDGA can do anything, but it can't do everything. And that is something we need to be aware of, because there is the risk of, overextending ourselves and becoming, mediocre or weak at stuff that, we should either form partnerships for or delegate. For example, we're delegating a lot more autonomy to PDGA Europe, which I think is a great direction to go. So the ways I think in which, I think we look at what are core competencies that are going to have a good payoff that we should invest in. Again, I'm a big believer in the clubs initiative. I think we have to keep pushing on technology, again, within the realm of what our core competencies are. We can't, technology is so vast. We don't need to try to do everything that any other disc golf related technology is doing, but we want to keep pushing ours forward in areas like I mentioned before, perhaps in personalization, in making that membership experience sticky.
Okay, I like it. I heard that the internet was going to go away. Somebody told me that a few years ago, but apparently it's here to stay. So fully investing. I like that. All right. Well, believe it or not, we're actually at the end of the scripted questions. And then here's the time for you to get completely loose, because I can say, is there anything that we missed? And if so, please take the time to say anything that's on your mind whatsoever, either anything we didn't touch on or any other points that you wanted to make or statements or whatever the case might be. The floor is entirely yours as to why the members should vote for you.
Sure. I don't think there's a particular topic that feels like a glaring omission. I would just, restate that, I've learned a lot over the past 3 years. I feel that I've got a lot of context now to continue some of the positive directions in which we're moving. That will benefit both the PDGA and the sport in general. And, I would love to get the chance to continue that work. So.
Okay. Well, I have said it to everyone throughout this entire process that I appreciate anyone and everyone that steps up and says they want to put their hat in the ring to be holding one of these positions. I appreciate what you've done over these last few years. Some people think it's crazy to even run for what feels sometimes like a thankless job. So anyone that is stepping up and saying they're looking to do it or to do it again, in your case, I just, from the bottom of my own personal heart, I want to say thank you very much. And I know that the membership appreciates it. Not everyone may say that, but ultimately we appreciate it.
Yeah, no,
So
it's been
thank
my
you very much.
pleasure, and
I appreciate
yeah.
that. All right. Well, everyone wants to know what this is all for, what this is all about. Well, of course, it's all about the voting. And so I'm going to just read to you real quick from the script talking about during the first week of elections, all PDGA members who are current as of June 25th, 2025, and for all whom the PDGA has a valid email address, you will receive online election instructions, including their individual ballot. The PDGA will send the ballot weekly to those who have not yet voted, so you'll keep getting a reminder. If you are a member and you didn't receive an email, please send one over to send an email to elections@pdga.com and with your name and your PDGA number, and then in turn, they'll go ahead and make sure to send you your ballot. So this is a great reminder yet again for everyone. Please double check that your email on file with the PDGA is up to date, that there's one there, and that it's current and up to date, because that's how you're going to receive your election ballot, because we want everyone voting. I'll be the first to say our voting turnout is usually abysmal. So use your voice, use your keypad to go ahead and vote for whomever the candidates are that you like the best. We have two candidates, two seats up right now, and Conrad currently filling one of those. So we appreciate it for all your additional insight today. And with that, Conrad, one last time, thank you for joining, and we'll see you guys at the next one.
Pleasure. All right. Thank you, Terry.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another installment of our PDGA Global Board of Directors interviews. Today, I'm going to catch up with one Charlie Mead, PDGA 1980. Charlie, we've got a list of questions we're going to rip through here real quick for you so that the members and voters can get to know you a little bit better. And I'm going to start out with the easiest one of them all, which is go ahead and introduce yourself.
Oh, wow. So I'm Charlie Mead. I'm from Wales, United Kingdom. I have been playing since 1979. I joined the PDGA in 1980, which is like the same as the number. I like that story, so that's okay. And I've been involved as a player, organizer, TD, administrator across the world for the last 45 years or so.
And I'm going to add right away, also inducted into the World Hall of Fame in 2023. I'm going to add that one on there, even if you're not. So thank you for introducing yourself. Let's get to some of the questions here that have been written up, which is, why are you running for the Global Board of Directors? What will your priorities be? And what issues will you choose to champion from a seat on the board?
Okay, so Terry, remember, I'm a bit old. That's 3 questions. I probably forget the last one by the time I get to it. Just give us a little hint. So,
yes, I will.
Why am I running? Okay, so for the last 9 years, I've been the chair of the World Flying Disc Federation, Disc Golf Committee, and I learned so much and learned that there's a real interest in disc golf more on a global level than you would realize. It doesn't matter where people come from. So when I resigned from the WIFDF post in December, and this came up, it just seemed a sort of a natural move in the way that the PDGA is moving at the moment. So with the announcement of 2 world championships, outside of America in this year and in 2029, it seems that was a way of beginning to redress the ballots. But I also noted that there's going to be quite a lot of opposition to that as well. So what I wanted to do was address that, the concerns that PDGA members might have about having world championships whatever division it might be, outside of the US, and at the same time encourage everybody who is outside of the US to actually, develop courses that are world class and able to run tournaments that are world class, so that they can't be ignored. Right? And if I'm on the board, then I will make sure that they get noticed and addressed. The best bid for any world should always win, wherever it's from. But at the same time, PDGA's moved from a very US centric sport to a global sport. And inside America, members need to recognize that that's the case. So, hope that I can make that point.
Yeah, certainly. And as we're seeing so many more of our players, obviously, on an international level and scale, it seems like you're right on track with everything you're saying there. We're going to move to the next one, which is tell us about your educational and work background and how do those skills and experience make you the best choice for the board?
My careers look really weird, I have to say, side by side. Because I was born into a generation where you don't have one career. I think quite a lot of disc golf players and members of the association, and whether it's from recreational right the way through to professional, are going to have 3 or 4 careers when they're quite young now. Well, I started doing what was in the theatre. I'd spent 10 years as a theatre director. So I am working with people all the time. I'm getting them to be creative. I'm getting them to do simple things like learn their lines, move to the right place at the right time, express the right emotion. I was the tree surgeon for a bit. That was fun. I love trees. I still do that stuff. But then I got involved with children who are having a really hard time, either at home or at school or both. Right now, after so I qualified in 93, so that's 32 years. I've been working with highly traumatized kids and with attachment difficulties, helping them build relationships, and really negotiating with the whole sort of package of who is in there with them as their sort of partners to help them do that. That translates over to disc golf remarkably well. I mean, not that there are a lot of bad boys and girls out there, but there are a few, and sometimes there's a little bit of negotiation that needs to go on. But the way in which you approach a problem and the way in which you can then allow people to express their views, but then, get an agreement about where we want it to end up, and therefore who needs to make that move? Who needs to move left or right? Who needs to push a little bit further on or step back? And what I've managed to do, I think, the 3 people who nominated me and wrote letters about me said that I was really good at negotiating differences between people and getting a result. I wouldn't have put it like that, but I'll take that. That's fine. So a lot of my WIFDIF career as disc golf chair was actually negotiating between World Fly Disc Federation, PDGA, the Fly Disc Federation, and national federations. I mean, there are 110 plus countries that are members of the World Fly Disc Federation. That's a lot more than there are countries that play disc golf at the moment. So I thought, here is an opportunity to get in there and start to work with the countries that don't play disc golf, don't have a federation, don't have an association, don't have a realistic way of having their own influence. I mean, one of my goals is to increase national membership for the PDGA, trying to double it in the next 5 years. At least get to 75, which is where I've set the target as.
Okay,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I mean, we don't have any members in Africa. No countries. We had one. It hasn't worked. So we need to start thinking about that sort of thing again.
Okay. Well, then, as you're speaking about members, that kind of leads us to our next one, which is what type of benefits do you think current PDGA members should receive?
Well, apart from like a tag and a badge and a little sticker. Okay. Materially, that's a real tough one, isn't it? And should everybody get shed loads of stuff for just being a member? I don't know. I think it's the participation that's more important than just being a member. I mean, there's a lot of people who are members. I mean, all three of my sons are members. Only James plays. He's pretty good, but he's the only one that plays regularly. But all three of them are members. They don't expect to get anything, for just being a member. But if they go to a tournament, I mean, given that the two older ones are AMs, they'd expect to pay their fees and get something back on it. The difficulty for me is, I guess, it's going to come down to one of those quality questions. Why are TDs still think that it's okay not to give back what the players put into an event? Right. Are people making a living out of being a TD, whether it's amateur or pro, right, and not bringing extra to the table? And I think that's where the benefit lies. The benefit lies in the PDGA training, enabling, demanding that TDs have a level of quality and income from outside of disc golf in order to reward the members who go. Membership just gives you access. It's so cheap. It's unbelievable. Any other sport, one, equipment's cheap. Two, access in America, nearly all courses are free to play. You're basically working on really cheap. In Europe, you'd be paying a lot of money on some courses, and if you play ball golf, you'd be broke. It's like that's how that goes. So for me, it's about access, more events, more tournaments, making sure that the members who are MA4, FA4 are getting as good a deal as the MA1s in AMS, and the same with the pros.
Yeah, and one thing that you can probably expand upon in some of your platforms or other answers to others might even be just some of the differences that you see in Europe versus what you see in the U.S. as a tournament director and as a tournament player. That question may even come across differently for you as it does for someone in the U.S. But we're going to stick to the script for the most part. That's just kind of food for thought in the future. My next one here for you is, how do you think we can increase PDGA membership, and how can we grow the sport in underserved areas?
Okay, so I touched upon this slightly earlier on, mentioning about Africa, okay, but South America, Central America, Caribbean, there's only about 4 or 5 countries in those huge areas of the world that have national affiliation with the PDGA. So we need to enable more PDGA members and coordinators, and especially continental coordinators, to actually get out there and make sure that we've got people playing. I know, the only way to do that is to build courses, right? If you don't have a course, people aren't going to play. So how do we do that? Even when we do that, though, it's like, you've got Marco Polo program, WIFTIF has its development program, you've got Paul Macbeth Foundation, everyone goes out there, all right? If you haven't got a base from which to inform, educate, and grow, nothing's going to happen. If you just give courses to people who don't know how to play and don't have a structure, it's going to disappear. So there's going to be nothing for people to do. They'll get enthused to start with and it'll disappear. So you have to go back to basics. I mean, one of the interesting things that's happened recently, not just in terms of World Championships going to Europe outside of America, is that the idea that clubs can make a difference. And actually, that's where it all started. If you go back to California, you go to Al Bonapane doing Forest Hills, and if you go to I guess Oak Grove, San Diego, because I mention those just because that's where I went when I first came to the States in 1881, 82. Right? No disrespect to anybody else, but where you had a strong player club base, whether they were a club or not, whether they just met everyone on Wednesday night and chuck money in a hat to see what get, that's how you get people starting. no one was born like a champion or anything like that. No one just went to a course and suddenly, like, I turned up to the States and there was sort of Joe Youngman and there was, Scott and all the Stafford Pearson, and they weren't born formed. Well, maybe Snapper was, I don't know. But it's like people who can play teach people who can't play. And one of the difficulties I've seen in America, but also in one or two other countries, is there's a level of elitism that doesn't allow that to happen. I've seen it affect juniors who haven't come back to play anymore. I've seen it affect a lot of women who have played and have become quite reasonable players. They disappear. 3 or 4 years later, you meet them. Why did you come back? Well, it's just like, I don't use my spare time to go out and just get laughed at by men, or whatever it would be. It's about challenging. If people want the sport to grow, then they have to grow it themselves. They have to find a way of engaging one person. Bring your dad along. That'll start. And that has become a big thing since COVID. A lot of players went out with their family, taught them how to play. I'll give you one example. So Rachel Turton, best female player in Britain, taught her dad how to play. He's MA 60, bang. Goes to a lot of tournaments, supports her. Didn't happen before.
Yeah, and as you're saying, and you've kind of already answered the next sub-question to that, which is how do we reach new members? I think you just spelled it all out. You're basically saying that the members we do have need to just bring their friends, bring other people, bring family. Is there anything else you want to add to that as to how do we reach new members?
Yeah, it's not in the sort of like manifesto that the PDGA published about what I said, but it was definitely in my application to become a board member. Teaching elite players how to teach. You're an elite player, you've become an elite player. Did you teach yourself? Did you watch thousands of hours of video on YouTube? Did you go out and trial stuff? Did you link in with a company and throw particular discs? What did you do? All right, well, okay. You did all of that. You've practiced. You've become top 10 in the world. You're probably going to be able to teach people, but you might be the worst teacher in the world because you don't know how to actually structure it from the beginning for people who are there, who are just starting off. I mean, there are a lot of older players who say, "Oh, it's easy. This is how you do it, right? Here's a video." Actually, that's not how it works, because actually it's to do with relationships again, and doing it at your local course where you're available. The most valuable people, I think, who are gonna teach others to throw, and therefore their mates will come along and throw, and we get new people coming in, are going to be, I guess, the sort of equivalent of the course pro in ball golf, who are around all the time. Do a regular, like a league or something like that, or do a regular session a week to teach people how to do it at different levels, and then deliver it in a way where someone feels that they've learned something and they come back and they go, "Great, I'm better than I was last week." Right? I still shot plus 24, but it was plus 28 last week. It's about that, isn't it? So I'd really like to see some of the elite players be taught how to teach. I mean, if they're teachers already, it's fine. But that's going to help a lot as well.
Okay. Well, so we talked about how to get new members, and then we know that one of the biggest things the members love, and you touched on earlier, is playing in competitive events and having them be accessible and such. So that's the question is, how does the PDGA increase the number of competitive events, and how do we make them more accessible?
Well, you've got a bit of a problem, haven't we? I'm coming to the States for the whole of September and October through to USDGC. I couldn't get into the main state championships. It was full. It was just like, boom, done. I was too slow on the trigger. So I've got to go to the Canadian Nationals instead. Terrible event. But I only did that because that was the alternative to going to the main states one in early September. So there are enough events clearly that are going to be full of people who can qualify for those events. There seems to be a suggestion, though, that what you're saying is there aren't enough. Right? So some of that, I think, is dependent upon how many places TDs offer. Because if you're going to filter down, if you don't fill up an event, you're probably not doing something right. Okay, so you take your A tiers, or they get full, all right, and then the B tiers get full, and you've got a full-time job, and you've got 2 kids, all right. You cannot travel from Connecticut to Florida, all right, and play a 2-day C tier or whatever it might be. So you've got to have enough events in your area to be able to go so that they all fill up. How many divisions do you offer? There are not enough, with due respect to myself and various others, older divisions offered in any event. So you might have MP40, but there's no MP50, 60, 70. So I'm playing with children who are 42 and 43 years old, you see my ratings recently? Yeah, because that's what I do. So I play with some of the best players in the world at divisions that are so much better than I am. So it's about getting that balance. Who's in your community? Who do you need to offer it for? Let's do a bit of research. Let's have a look at why you can't have more than one C tier within 20 kilometers of each other or what have you. Things like that need to be looked at. Because if there are more players and people are not getting into tournaments, they're not going to stay as members. Why would they? I only made 3 tournaments this year because they were all full. Because I can't travel, because I got family, I got this, blah 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 blah. All the reasons why. It's only the elite players and masters who've got a lot of money, men and women, because we earn more because we're older and we got better jobs, and our children have left home, and that's fine. They're the only 2 groups that can really travel a lot and afford it. So what about the other 25,000? Well, that's you want membership, that you've got to focus on. I mean, I'm very much for focusing on elite and getting the elite thing right, but you really got to think about the bulk of players, not just in America. So
yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I'm hearing you say make sure that you're looking at all of our demographics and then possibly reaching out and appeasing to more than just the elite members, because there are so many, especially in, we'll say, some of the age protected divisions. If I'm summarizing that correctly, that's what I'm hearing.
You are. I need to have you as my sort of script editor here, Tony. Clearly, I'm waffling on far too much.
No,
what
not at all.
Far better than what I say.
No, I'm trying to remain completely impartial to everyone. I just want to make sure that I'm understanding your answer correctly.
You are absolutely understanding my answer correctly.
All right, we'll move on to the next one, and that is where do you think the PDGA is falling short, and where do you think the PDGA should then focus their time?
I don't think the PDGA is falling short. I think the situation that the PDGA has got itself into by having a clear lack of leadership at the top over the last 4 or 5 years has really impacted, not in a way that there didn't seem to be anything happening within the PDGA. And from our perspective in Europe, and certainly my perspective, everything was coming from independent external forces. So the growth of DGPT and the Disc Golf Network and all the issues around that, identifying simple things like identifying really good commentators to get things sort of sorted. Right? Sorted for what? Sorted for a tour that actually could have been driven and could have come from inside the PGA, I guess. But where was the leadership on that? I mean, I when I was first elected for the World Flying Disc Federation post, and remember, I am then working. The members of the WIFDIF are countries; they're not individuals. PDGA, you're individuals. Though you have affiliate countries, the countries aren't members. You, as an individual, are members. And if you're all from the same country, you'll get together and you might do something. But the PDGA doesn't run events for countries. Christian happens to come from Estonia. Dan happens to come from the USA. That's just geographic stuff. But if you want to engage with people in a wider context, you need to provide more opportunities for them to do that. And what happened with PDGA was nothing happened. And I know from talking to people inside that was a real frustration for them. So you have new leadership now. Doug's there as, and he's already made a huge difference in terms of showing what can happen. People might not like the decisions that are being made or how they're being made, but they're being made. And they're being made, as far as I'm concerned, on a global basis. That's where it has to go. So one of the things that I want to do is absolutely make sure that World Championships are spread over far more countries. It's only 2 so far, all right? So even though as a board member now, I would only serve for 3 years, let's say, if I was fortunate enough to get elected, that would only take us to 2028. We've already decided World Championships in 2029 in Estonia. So I've got to make sure that in those 3 years that decisions about 2030, 31, 32, given the 4 major championships that are there in different divisions, that at least one of those every year after that goes somewhere else apart from the USA. You've got to try it. I mean, we went to Australia for the first time with a World Championship in November. It was amazing. We had 300 plus players from 24 countries competing as their country for where they are in a club just outside Perth. It couldn't have been better, And if you had a World Championship in Australia or New Zealand, I know that despite what some people say about travel, people from America and everywhere around the world would go there. So that's the sort of thing that sort of message needs to go, and that needs to be driven by PDGA. Otherwise, you just stay as a USA-centric type of organization.
Okay, and I'll quickly interject as a person who's been tasked with traveling to some of these places, many of these countries. They've been my greatest experiences. If anyone ever said to me, where are my best memories in all of disc golf, I immediately think of all the different countries that I've been to and had the pleasure and the honor of being at and experiencing disc golf outside of the U.S., although it is so heavily centralized and focused here. I'm looking forward to the idea of us expanding to be the global sport that we really are. So with that, Charlie, believe it or not, we're essentially at the end, except for the last question, which maybe will be your favorite, maybe not. Oh. And that is simply, is there anything that we missed? Is there anything that you want to share with what's on your mind or any other messaging that you'd like to put out there for all of our voters? It's a completely open-ended. The floor is yours. Anything you wish to share, clarify, expand upon, whatever the case might be, the floor is yours.
I'm gonna save the last section of this because I just want to mention a couple of things that haven't come up yet. So we want to increase the number of PDGA associated countries. I want to double the number of countries that have at least 10 women playing. There are only 27 countries that have more than 10 women who are PDGA members. So we need to find a way of doing that. Okay, I want to increase the number of countries that have more than 50 masters at whatever, because these are the people who are going to drive the economic side of PDGA. When you want people to travel, I want people to travel. I want people to go to world championships. I want people to compete. Well, if all of a sudden, after 44 years of playing in America at world championships at Santa Cruz, or wherever it might be, I get a bit of payback now because you have to pay from America to come over here. I'm absolutely sure my bank balance is zero compared to anyone else's. So that's another one. The one about trying to increase participation from countries that aren't yet engaged in it, we've dealt with that already. But here's, I guess, I don't want members to feel as though I'm ending on a sort of down note, okay? But there is a reality in all sports about how, especially at the elite level, people engage with how they feel about the sport that they're playing. And sometimes it overwhelms them. Sometimes it takes over their lives. And I'm sure that there's a lot of people, well, I hope that a lot of people who are listening to this are aware that John Baldwin took his own life. And it was something that had, given that I was a friend of his and he came to visit me and I'm a psychologist, that I should have picked up on. Why didn't I do? Because he was such a secret man and he kept himself to himself and he was so respected by so many people. But still he had this level of depression and mental health issue that I think we could have maybe, if not recognized, at least had a facility to be able to go, hey, how are you feeling? You're getting a bit depressed here. You're not doing as well as you think in the sport, but also it's affecting your private life. Is it affecting family life? Is it affecting, because let's face it, disc golf is only a part of our whole lives. Some people might disagree with that, but the majority of us who are members will, given that there are so many members, at least a quarter out there right now will be having some struggles with their mental health. And the thing that I would like, and it's something that can be continuous, is to set up as a facility for all members to be able to contact us about how they feel about stuff. So this is going to happen, by the way, whether I get on the board or not, because I've already contacted medical directors or around the world, already looked at what other sports facilities have to support mental health. So few. It's unbelievable. Even huge sporting organizations like international athletics or cycling, because they push their athletes to the limit, they don't have a way of bringing them back. And I think we could do that. I think we could do that really well. I know there are at least 3 other psychologists who have been elite players in their lives, apart from myself, all right, who are absolutely on board with that. And we can do this to start with just on our own. We will need huge help in the future because I know it's going to be something that people will use and will value. So that's just something I want to get done.
I'll admit, as a 30+ year member of the organization, that is not something that I thought about in terms of maybe a benefit or an add-on that the PDGA could facilitate or be part of. So I want to just say thank you for that. Just even the thought of pursuing something like that, having that offering, and like you said, whether you're involved or whether you're on the board or not, it's going to happen. I do appreciate and thank you for all of that. That's something that had not crossed my mind before. And as a big fan and a friend to John Baldwin, I completely echo and understand everything you're saying, and then some. And we know that plenty of people out there would love to have another outlet and resource and person to be able to talk to or reach out to. So thank you for all of that. I very much appreciate it.
Thanks.
With that, we've talked about all of these things that have been put together from the PDGA. Everyone's received these same questions. So hopefully all of our members can go out and compare and contrast, see what they love and or align or agree with or disagree with, whatever the case might be. And that all culminates in actually voting. And we all know that we need more voting. More people need to participate to have their voice be heard. So here are a few details. During the first week of elections, all PDGA members who are current as of June 25th, 2025, and for whom the PDGA has a valid email address, you will receive online election instructions, including your individual ballot. The PDGA will send the ballot weekly to those who have not yet voted, so you'll get reminders. And if members don't receive an email, send an email to elections@pdga.com with your name and PDGA number so that you can for sure receive a ballot. We want everybody to be heard and their vote to be counted. Our voting turnout has been abysmal. I mean, I'll put it bluntly. It's been abysmal, and that's been ongoing for many years. And it's easier than ever to simply get your online ballot, to get it filled out and to get it submitted. So make sure that you take advantage of doing that as a PDGA member. We know you want your voice to be heard, and this is the best possible way you can do it. We have 5 candidates this year, with 2 of them being elected for the 3-year term. Charlie Mead is one of them. Again, Charlie, I want to thank you for not only joining us today and giving us some more insight, but also thank you for just putting your hat in the ring and being another option and opportunity here for our members. We very much appreciate it. I know it takes a lot of courage to put yourself out there and time and dedication to be on the board. So with that, everyone, that's Charlie Mead, PDGA 1980, the year he signed up. That's it for our PDGA Global Board of Directors. Get to know Charlie Mead. We'll see you guys for the next one.
Thanks, Terry. Appreciate it.